So we open up with Bold looking like any man who spent out a night longer than he thought he would, and after some admittedly rather deep visual symbolism, he returns to his Earth to see a rather nasty shock. Whisper's redecorated! No, in fact he sees a large, what I assume to be a St. Bernard, barking down the hole to their Earth, which is a fitting introduction to this new character. This is Rollo, aka my least favourite character in the series. And yes, I know that there are people who are out there who are going to take offence to that, and if you like this character then that's perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But just personally to me, I find him insufferable to watch. But we'll have to get back to that later. For now, Rollo is still barking down Whisper, and despite Bold's attempt to act like his dad from the last series and distracting a dog...
Hey, dog!
That's not how you do it. This is...
Well, dog.
Bold then rushes to try and help Whisper, but finds that the hole for the entrance has been fixed. So the council will fix a tiny problem like that, but when I want to make an extension to my greenhouse, it takes months of planning, preparation and paperwork, and they still say no. Won't allow growth of narcotics my arse. However, if you remember, Robber and Bold still have their arrangement to help each other out, so he returns to Robber's tree and leaves him some bread to get him to help out. Unfortunately, Rollo has somehow performed some kind of bait and switch since he's now outside the gate waiting for Bold.
Clever girl.
Thankfully, Robber does see Bold's message and holy shit! Robber's the bloody Flash! Either that or he's trying to act like a peregrine falcon and dive bomb Rollo at 250 miles per hour. If he could fight like that, why did he even need Bold around? Or maybe he's just one of those people who likes having people less fortunate around him to make himself feel bigger. So after Robber dives Rollo at Mach 1 and Whisper jumps over the wall to Bold's aid too, we then probably get what is one of the dumbest things I've seen in this show, and that's saying a lot.
What's wrong? I only want to be friends.
So, you tried getting some friends by barking and shouting at them through their door in the middle of the night. Sounds like my neighbours at uni. But seriously, if we've already established that in this world that the animals can freely communicate with each other fluently by using some sort of universal language, and that we know that dogs do act aggressive to each other and other animals by barking at them like that, then why the hell do you think that that would work in trying to get friends? And yes, I know that dogs do act like that towards each other in real life when they're trying to be friendly, but when you know that the other animals, especially foxes, would act to you scared when you bark at them like that because you used to hunt foxes, we'll get to that in a minute, then why the hell do you think that would work? Or are you just a sucker for playing hard to get? And with that, I feel I can now talk about Rollo proper here and why I don't like him. Now at his core, Rollo is supposed to be a neurotic and shy character who's been through hardships in his life and is just trying to look for some companionship, which is actually a great concept for a character. It's immediately identifiable, especially for children, and it does display the harsh cruelty of a world that a character like this would have to go through. So as a concept, I'm completely on board with Rollo. However, much like Space Jam and Diet Katana, just because an idea has merit on concept doesn't mean that it can't bomb in execution. And here, it all comes down to the voice. Now up until this point, most of the animals that Ron Moody voices have been pretty top-notch, with most of them being unrecognisable that it's actually him doing the voice. Here, however, either someone told him to play up the nasally Fagin voice too much, or he had a cold on the day he was doing the part and the director liked it because, well, look at this.
Oh yes, I'm lonely. I tried you before when you were in your den, only you wouldn't come out to play. Why won't you play with me? I get so lonely.
Oh yes, we are gonna have to hear that voice the whole time he's on screen. In fact, if anything, by Series 3 it gets even more annoying. Just the way you can actually hear the spit filling up his mouth, and it sounds like he's constantly sniffing. Ugh, it's just irritating to listen to. Now again, I'm not attacking Rollo on the kind of character that he is, but when the performance is just not done well enough, it fails to make the character charming and endearing, and just makes him pathetic and a pain. He's basically Jim Carrey's role from The Cable Guy, but whereas that performance was made funny by the way he played the character, here it just feels like the kid at school who you try to avoid and is constantly tagging along with you, and you don't want to tell them to go away, but you don't really like having them around you either. And trust me, I've been on both sides of that situation, so I know more than anyone what it's like. So yes, while the idea and concept of Rollo may have merit, just the execution of the voice makes him, to me, my least favourite character in the show. And that's saying a lot. Anyway, despite his proclamation of loneliness, Robber, who despite his voice is actually less annoying than Rollo, doesn't understand and attempts to Red Wing Rollo again. Unfortunately, it's too late to stop him and Rollo lays him out.
You stupid great dog!
Said every kid who watched this episode the first time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. You've killed him now. But I can't have done. It was just a little tap.
You don't know your own strength.
Oh, I am sorry. I don't know. I'm always saying I'm sorry. My master's always cross with me. Can't please him either. Oh, dear.
Oh well, easy come, easy go. Now let's scrape him off the pavement and get him into a pastry. Oh, of course he's not dead, though given that Rollo's speaking directly into his ear, I'm betting that he wished that he was. Now some may remember me saying from last series that some fans consider Bruno from last series to be the same character as Rollo from this series. And while it is an interesting theory, I have two misgivings against this in that 1, Bruno was a bulldog and Rollo looks to be a St. Bernard, and 2, Bruno was cool and Rollo is not. But anyway, Rollo's annoying voice does actually manage to revive Robber. No, seriously, they actually say that.
He's breathing life into him. No, Crow, he's just saved your life.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. First you kill me, then you save my life. Oh, thank you very, very, very much.
You know what, Crow? You should be thanking your lucky stars.
And so, after a sitcom-style conclusion to this little matter of life and death, Bold and Whisper seem to have made friends with Rollo, Robber of course being less enthusiastic about it, but regardless, they get Rollo to make the hole in the wall bigger for them so that they can get into their Earth. Something I bet that this woman would have wanted as well.
Oh no!
He's stuck.
Don't tell me I've done it again.
Ouch! I suppose you want to kill him, so you can bring him back to life too.
I love Robber. He's like the Adder of Bold's journey, totally snarky about everything and totally not giving a shit about it. So Rollo joins Bold's little ragtag town, the Animal Gang, and the group enjoys feeding off his hospitality by chowing down on his food. Which is one of the few things I will actually give to him. Despite his annoyance, he does continually get crapped on through all his life, so I can see that side of it at the very least. Including the next scene in where it's revealed that Rollo's new master has tied him down and the other animals have to try and help him out. And here is where I unfortunately start losing interest. I do at the very least like what they're trying to do with Bold's story by having the idea of this very close band of animals trying to help each other out and be a very close communal kind of story. It's a very well done idea and it could have done really well here as well. The problem is that it's all centered around Rollo, who, while admittedly he could have been really good, and if I actually liked him I probably would have loved this part of the series, it's just of how he's so annoying. It makes it really tedious and insufferable to sit through. And to be fair, this had promise. The idea of Bold having found a new stable living condition now, it really relates to real life, how you struggle and find problems but you push through and find solutions. And I don't want to hate Rollo, it's just the fact that his voice is so irritable, it makes him so not likable. So there's potential here, it's just rather squandered by the fact that one element of one character does that. So Could have been really good, but unfortunately it just makes this rather boring, tedious, and rather annoying. So the foxes break out Rollo, they go hunting, Rollo messes it up, blah blah blah. Can we just get on with it, please?
Yes, get on with it!
Eventually we do manage to get something a bit more interesting, though whether that's for the better or for the worse is up for debate. The following scene is one of the most infamous within Series 2 and truly creates a division for Whisper on how people feel about her character. But that all depends on how you feel about the following scene, as we shall see.
Bold? I've got something to tell you. I'm carrying your cubs.
Oh, that's wonderful! Wonderful! Oh, Whisper, I'm so happy.
I'm glad. Because you do realise it means we're going to have to leave here.
Why?
I want my cubs to be born somewhere safe, where they can be near their own family.
What do you mean?
I want them to be born in White Deer Park.
But I swore never to go back.
I know, but you were on your own then.
Have you any idea how far it is?
All the more reason to start now.
Oh, why did you accept me as your mate?
Because of your father, of course. My cubs will have his blood. Oh, I do hope they take after him.
And I thought it was because you liked me.
Oh, I do. But I have to think of my cubs, you know. They come first.
Yes, the cubs come first.
I'm glad you agree. We mustn't be selfish, Bold. And if we really do want them born in your park, then we must leave, now.
Oh yes, that seriously just happened. Whisper has dropped about 3 massive bombs onto Bold right there. She's pregnant, she wants them born in White Deer Park, and she's carrying them not because she loves Bold, but because he has a famous father. Where to even begin? Well, here's an idea. How about the top 10 things that are wrong with this scene? Well, firstly, bitch! Secondly, are you fucking serious? Thirdly, talk about perpetuating negative stereotypes about city girls, saying that they'll sleep with anyone if you say the right thing. Fourth, are you really gonna make Bold go back to where he said he'd never go again after everything he's just told you? Again, are you fucking serious? Fifth, how the hell could you be so heartless to someone who you know has been going through some really tough times, has been through hell and back just to get here? And now you're forcing him to go back to a safe place just to have your cubs live there. 6. Why the hell are you going along with this, Bold? She's just given you every reason to leave her behind and you're still sticking with her. You're still a wild animal and you may have some responsibility, I grant you, but you could still just dash away and leave her with the little shits. 7th, who the hell are you talking about selfish when you're the one who's forcing him to go back to said place? Think that you're also trying to go away from an area where you have plenty of friends and resources to keep your family safe and happy, and yet you still want to venture through farming land and hunting land just to get back there. 8. Talk about responsible when you're putting the wounded fox in charge of keeping you and your unborn cubs safe. You've got more of a chance of putting yourself in a shopping trolley and someone pushing you down the hill back to White Deer Park. 9th, do you really think that Bold's dad's gonna be happy when he sees what's happened to him and how you've treated him? It'd be the equivalent of going up to your boyfriend's dad ballooned up and the son going, "Hey dad, can I borrow a mortgage?" And finally, 10th, why the hell didn't you tell him about this in the first place? So yeah, as you can imagine, just this brief scene has resulted in Whisper being one of the most despised characters in the show, and I can certainly see why. And despite my earlier rant, and even though the execution of this idea has been botched royally, I actually do kind of like what they're trying to do here. Hear me out. Hear me out. This is still Colin Dan trying to push the idea of a harsh world, particularly one for teenagers or young adults, in how living footloose and fancy-free can result in stuff like this happening, in a decision that you might regret. And despite how much people now hate her for this, I don't think we were ever supposed to like Whisper in the first place. So really, to me, it's just made a neutral character and making her deliberately unlikable. And the reaction of Bold's face when this happens is priceless. This is truly the look of a man who is thinking, well, My life's gone to hell. And if you're wondering how I know that, that's because that's the face that every video game reporter pulls when they're off camera. So yes, I can understand why people hate this scene, and I still do kind of in a way, but I can understand what they were trying to go for here, and I do still kind of respect them for that. Doesn't quite turn out the way I think they will hope they were going for, but I can still understand what they were going for, and it's a respectable idea nonetheless. So Bold naturally reluctantly goes along with this and says his farewells to Rollo and Robber.
Whisper wants our cubs to be born in White Deer Park. Like me.
I see. Is it far? Well, you'll at least have a last meal before you go.
Thank you, Rollo.
Thank you, Rollo. We really must go now. Come on. Bold.
I'm coming.
So after all your brave talk, you're going back.
Yes. With my tail between my legs.
You failed.
Well, thanks for rubbing it in, Robber. I wonder how your bedside manner is. Probably about as comforting as an inbred shark.
All my life I've tried to escape from my father's shadow. But it seems I'm fated. She only accepted me as her mate because of my father. I'm no good to her, except as a guide to lead her to his precious nature reserve.
Yeah, it is a shame. But you've got a wife now, Bold, so everything in your life goes in her direction. So suck it up and toe the line, Bold.
Goodbye, old friend.
I'll come with you. Set you on your way.
Thank you, Crow. Goodbye, Rollo.
Wait, what? Snow? Is it winter again already? Oh, but I finished my list. I haven't got any more ice jokes I can make. Except maybe this one.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You're digging for gold. You're throwing away a fortune and feelings, but someday you'll pay.
That actually does kind of fit with this moment. So Bold and Whisper go off to try and get back to White Deer Park, though naturally Bold's limp starts playing up, particularly since it's snowing. That's really going to start flaring up the rheumatism. Actually, what's great about this scene is the way Bold's mood changes on what character he's talking to. When he's talking to Robber, he seems happy and content. When Whisper comes over to him...
I've found an old earth. It's quite safe. It isn't far.
I'm coming. Goodbye, old friend.
And that's basically marriage in a nutshell. So the trio move on in snow, wind and rain, but Bold seems to be getting weaker and weaker. Not that I'm surprised, his wounds aren't exactly going to heal quickly if he keeps moving around like that. Especially his greatest wound of all, a broken heart. Cue the music!
Bold? What's wrong?
I can't go any further.
It's my fault.
Ladies and gentlemen, the understatement of the century goes to... Despite that, Bold collapses and passes out on the ground, and Whisper manages to shed a single tear for her dear mate. Oh, it almost makes you forget that she's a possessive, controlling, manipulative, commodifying bitch who forced her mate to walk somewhere he didn't want to go with a wound in his leg. Sadly, Bold seems to have collapsed in the middle of a giant rat and rabbit race. Oh, those are supposed to be greyhounds? Sorry, you could have fooled me. So he's naturally really in the headlights right now, and barely having enough energy left and hobbling along as it is, he's got about as much chance as a smartphone in the Kardashians' house. Fortunately, a St. Bernard and a crow were tied down for a crime they didn't commit. These animals promptly escaped from a busy town. Today, still wanted by pest control, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you got a problem, and no one else can help, and you have food, then maybe you can hire... Rollo and Robber, saviors of teenage foxes everywhere.
No, this is more like it. Adventure at last.
Quit your jibber jabber.
So yes, the two R's manage to save Bold, and Whisper then reluctantly returns.
Oh dear, dear Bold. Can you forgive me, Bold?
What for?
Do you want me to read you the list again, Bold? Actually, as much as I'm not a fan of Whisper, I do admit that I like how she at least admits what she did was wrong. It's sporadic and a rather narcissistic plea for forgiveness, but at least she admits that what she did was wrong.
I'm sorry.
Without help, I would have died long ago. So perhaps, after all, there is something to be said for the oath. And animals looking after one another.
Yes, it's finally taking him a damaged eye, a wounded leg, starvation, exhaustion, and a broken heart to figure out the true meaning of Farthing would animals forever. Bit of a slow learner, isn't he? And if it took him a dog's age to figure that out, maybe he shouldn't have left the park. Speaking of which, we now cut back to the park, the first time in the whole episode. Yeah, nearly an entire episode devoted to Bold's story. He finally gets undiverted attention, and he spends most of it having more crap and abuse slung at him than an extra in Caligula. But regardless, Vixen comes in direct contact with Lady Blue again, and they have an interesting conversation.
What are you doing on Farthing land? What's it to you? Everything. Are you spying on us, or is this to be an attack? Which would you prefer, my dear? Are you threatening me? Me? What are you thinking of? I am no common red fox, used to brawling.
We'll see how that works out in just a minute. In fact, the following scene is also a very infamous moment, possibly maybe even more than the last one from this episode, and it's just as gory as Ada's tail pinata moment from earlier in the series, and just as awesome as Fox's dog trick from series 1. What the what in name is going on right now? What the hell is going on?
Oh yes, I'm sorry about my late arrival, ladies and gentlemen, but it's time I took over things here. And unlike that Kyle geezer, I know how to keep myself safe, so I'm doing it as far away from that punk as I possibly can in my own very tiny studio. But yeah, no chance of getting this shit kicked out of me. That's what we're here to see. So join me, wrestle fans, Tad Grappleworthy. Yes, that is my real name. And what is sure to be a fight of all ages between these two foxy ladies. So yeah, it's WrestleMania Shakedown in the Woods 2015! And there's Lady Blue, getting things started off with a graceful swipe at Vixen's nose. But Vixen swishes out of the way just like a man with diarrhea to Weatherspoons, and counters with, "Oh my ears and whiskers, she's bitten off Blue's ear!" And she's gonna hear a lot on that from Scarface, but only half of it. But after such a strong start, Vixen is off with just a nibble on the chest. And there's Blue with Vixen's fur in her maw and an ear looking like blue cheese that's been left out in the sun too long. And they both return to their corners and their managers help lick their wounds. Literally. That was one hell of a fight, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think any of us saw that coming. Well, be sure to join me here next time for Fox vs. Scarface, the match of the century. Can we wait 7 days to see that fight? I don't know, folks, but I can tell you one thing. I can't ever leave the studio. And quite frankly, I'm just gonna have to keep thinking of that fight to prevent me from thinking about the fact I can't ever go home. Somebody please, for the love of God, help me!
Ah, we're back now. Good. That's the last time I trust a spam email was scanning my computer. I thought an address called www.imnotarwrestlingdouche.com was a bit suspicious. But whatever. We're back now and we can get to the last bit of the episode.
What happened?
It was Scarface's mate, Lady Blue. She was on the boundary by the pine trees. I challenged her and she attacked me.
Bold was right. I shouldn't have avoided the fight with Scarface.
Wow. Both members of opposing parties have agreed with each other. If only this happened more in real politics.
But Scarface is going to find things are very different from now on. I'm supposed to be a great hero. Well, I think it's time I lived up to the reputation.
So I'm guessing that you guys are probably going to guess what my final word is on this episode, given how much I've talked to great lengths about it already. And yeah, I definitely think this is one of the worst, if not the worst episode of the second series. But even with that said, there are still some things I do kind of like about it. Every bad thing always has one good thing in it, much like Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, the sets of the Teletubbies, or the intro to the 2015 Nintendo E3 press conference. There's always some kind of silver lining in there. Though I would have preferred a little bit more engaging elements and a little bit more proper drama. Though regardless of that, despite how much I hated on Rollo, I will say that he's at the very least a kind character, and it's also nice to come across someone that Boulder's met who is legitimately nice to him. Plus he has an awesome A-team moment with Robber, so that's got to count for something. And as you can imagine, the fight between Vixen and Lady Blue was awesome, even if it was a tad overkill on the violence. Though that's also kind of ironic since Vixen's wound doesn't even look like she's even got a wound at this point, unless you count the smear of pink on her coat, but that looks like she just had a smell when mixing some blancmange. So yeah, definitely not the best episode, but it has some good moments in it. But we are nearing the end of our story now, and the sparks and the flames of war are starting to lick and shall fill the sky soon. The ultimate clash of red and blue will finally meet, and what will it result in? Well, I just hope to God it's not the colour purple.
And now for something completely different.
I don't think we were ever supposed to like whisper. Hang on, I've got to catch my breath. That says a lot about my health when just running up the stairs and doing filming, it makes me out of breath. And Brandon Nichols, if you're out there watching this, I do apologise for stealing your look and a little bit of your humour, but quite frankly, I couldn't think of anything better to do for this scene, so thank you very much for the inspiration. You've been a great inspiration to me more ways than one, and I don't think you'll ever know that, because I doubt you'll ever see this, but whatever. Geordie cap, sunglasses, and a leather jacket in the middle of July. I am absolutely baking.